What is going on, everybody? Movie review here, and today we're going to be talking about They Live, directed by John Carpenter, starring Roddy Piper and Keith David. So, They Live is a action, sci-fi, horror movie. The story is about Roddy Piper. He's a drifter. He's drifting into town, into the city, and he's kind of down on his luck. He needs a job. Very much a perfect representation of like a middle class kind of worker, and he uncovers this giant, huge conspiracy that pretty much aliens run the world, and they're sending subliminal messages through advertising and television and magazines and everything we consume, to keep being obedient and keep being subservient without us even knowing, with subconscious signals and all that stuff. The plot is pretty on the nose. I mean, we know what this is a commentary of, pretty much to boil it down to the simplest sense. It's a criticism of the corporate fat cats in their ivory towers not caring about the little man. That's pretty much the general plot of the movie. You can definitely dig deeper into it. It has a lot to say about consumerism and being subservient, not standing up for anything, not questioning authority or anything like that. I mean, it's all there. It's right in front of you. There's no subtlety whatsoever. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, I think it was probably done on purpose to be as jarring and as in your face as possible. So one of the things I personally love about this movie, I mean, first of all, John Carpenter is my favorite director of all time. Every movie he makes, in my opinion, has some good to it. Even some of his shittier movies from like the 2000s, which I actually haven't seen any of those, but just about every movie I think he makes is great, and this is no exception. I love how it's style and it's substance. You have both. I mean, if you want just a dumb action movie with some fun one-liners, it's here. Roddy Piper in this movie spews so many great one-liners. It could be a drinking game. One of the classic lines in the movie is, I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of gum. Obviously, that's been recycled in Duke Nukem, and that game was probably heavily inspired by this film, and it's gone on to garner cult status. A lot of people are, I feel like, starting to discover this movie, and it's a good thing because it's definitely one of the more underrated 80s science fiction action movies. One of the things I love about the film is the action, and I've always said that in order for me to want to dig deeper into your film, you have to entertain me first. Film, in my opinion, is an entertainment medium. Entertain me first, then give me a message. And I like how this is a perfect balance of the two. It has its message, clear as day, but it's also just an entertaining movie. So if you don't care about any of that, if you don't care about diving deep into film or looking at any of the subtext, if it really goes over your head, I mean, you're a fucking idiot. It's the perfect blend, in my opinion. Obviously, some people might like subtlety a little bit more in their film, but I don't mind it being super in your face either. The performances across the board are, pretty serviceable. I mean, nothing Oscar-worthy, but Roddy Piper gives a very, likable, charismatic performance, as you'd expect from him. Keith David is great, as usual. Obviously, from Carpenter's other film, The Thing, is where you know him from. The rest of the side characters are pretty fun and pretty memorable, and just overall, it's a pretty solid acting all around. One other thing I want to talk about is just the overall design of the aliens. I feel like they're really well done, and I like how when you put on the sunglasses, it's all black and white. it seems, once again, very deliberate, seeing things in black and white, good and bad. And also, the alien faces are very, very unique, but they definitely have like a touch of, old 1950s science fiction movies, which was a huge inspiration to John Carpenter. And obviously he's carried that inspiration over into this film, and I think it looks great. Even by today's standards, it's not a film from that era that heavily relied on special effects, which I think helps make it stand the test of time even more. One last thing I wanted to talk about is music. Obviously, music composed by John Carpenter, like in all of his other films. Not his greatest score, it's not up there with Halloween or Escape from New York or something, but I think it does the job. It adds a little bit of tension. It's got the classic John Carpenter synth, and it adds enough. It's not gonna rock your world or anything like that, but I just figured I'd bring it up because it's a John Carpenter film, and music is very important to a lot of his movies since he composed them. So just another thing I thought I'd point out. Yeah, that's gonna do it for this one. They live and we sleep, or something like that. I don't know. I almost forgot to mention one of the greatest fist fights of all time. A true just brawl. These two guys just beating the shit out of each other, and it goes on for like 4 or 5 minutes, and it's absolutely amazing. And apparently it's about how the middle class is too busy fighting amongst themselves to notice the real problem and to make any real change. But I can't believe I almost forgot to mention that fight. It's amazing. I mean, come on. Now I'm gonna go.